let's have some girl talk. Welcome to World AIP, the channel dedicated to helping you implement the Autoimmune Protocol. I'm certified AIP coach Stacy, and today I'm going to be talking about things like PMS and estrogen dominance and how AIP plays into all that. I'm also going to be doing a book review on Cooking for Hormone Balance by Magdalena Zalaki. Sharon Rush was kind enough to send me this book that she found in my Amazon wish list. Thank you so much, Sharon. That was really sweet of you. It totally made my day when it came. I've been wanting to read this. I was interested in reading the book because personally I've suffered in the past from uterine cysts, life-altering cramps, and even the dreaded PMS. And I'm sure I have viewers with autoimmune conditions like endometriosis and polycystic ovary syndrome. Balancing female hormones is also important when you're dealing with Hashimoto's, adrenal fatigue, and menopause. Now, because of the way I've been eating the last few years, which is basically AIP plus a couple of reintros, not many, lots of vegetables and lots of omega-3s, and I'm like a sugar phobe. I don't do sugar. So I don't get cramps anymore. Like, I just have a normal day. This still amazes me because I used to have to call out sick one day every month. Sometimes two. I'd literally be in bed like with cold sweats from the pain, clutching a heating pad or alternating it with like frozen bag of peas or just trying anything. Literally praying to God like, I'm sorry, I'll be more religious, I'll read the Bible, I'll do whatever you want, take this pain away. My cramps just kind of started dissipating, you know, then it would be like not every month but some months, and then it was just a lot less, and now it's like I don't get cramps. I just don't get them. And no sign of uterine cysts at all either. But I do still have some wonky female hormone issues. Only when I eat certain foods. I seem to be easily pushed into estrogen dominance. For me, I'm convinced it's a detox issue. Estrogen has to be detoxified by the liver in order to be excreted from your body, or it's going to build up and it's going to skew your ratio of estrogen to progesterone. It's not so much that in estrogen dominance that you have huge amounts of estrogen, it's that you have too much in relation to how much progesterone you have. I have genetic glitches that I know about through genetic testing that prevent me from breaking down many drugs and chemicals and hormones, and that can lead to estrogen dominance symptoms. Reduced tolerance to stress, breast tenderness, water retention, bloating, fun things like that. And no, those are not normal things, even though we all seem to think that's just the normal thing that happens every month. No, it's not. It's common. It's not normal. We just get used to it. Other signs of estrogen dominance can include irregular periods, fibrocystic breast tissue, mood swings, fatigue, and headaches. Many women with endometriosis have estrogen dominance. They are definitely linked. When I personally eat foods with phytoestrogens in them, which are plant-based estrogens, I actually go up almost a cup size, and it hurts. It's not a good thing. I mean, that sounds like a great thing. It's not a good thing because I know that is correlating with all those other horrible things. Like, I'm like, uh-oh, this means it's gonna be a rough week. I can't touch flaxseed, which isn't AIP anyway, but I had reintroduced most seeds, and that's fine. Flax causes this whole hormonal thing for me. Pomegranates do too. They're rich in phytoestrogens. I also react really poorly to true yams, not sweet potatoes, but actual yams of the Dioscorea family. I get extreme bloating, exaggerated PMS, and you know, the cup size. About these phytoestrogens, they're supposed to contain a beneficial plant-based estrogen that plugs up the receptors in your body for estradiol, the more potent form of estrogen. So by doing that, by plugging up the receptors for the more potent estradiol, they're supposed to reduce all of this hormonal mess, you know, estrogen dominance and all that, because now we're using weaker plant forms instead of stronger forms. But not for me. Not for me, because I read all the articles and I tried using these phytoestrogens to help with, and it gets so much worse, like much worse. Seems that I'm not alone. Dr. Lee Erin Keneally, founder of the Center for New Medicine in Irvine, California, has an article on her website entitled The Flax Myth. I'm going to link to that below. Basically, she's saying, you know, we have so many environmental estrogens we're bombarded with every day. At one point, maybe flax could have been a helpful supplement, but due to the prevalence of environmental estrogens, it's just simply not true. And she actually says, you know, try it for yourself. experiment. She says, you know, most you read in this article or whatever, it's about estrogen dominance and all, that's what she treats. She says you're estrogen dominant or progesterone deficient, so you may already have those complaints. She says, add flax to your diet and watch your symptoms increase. Conversely, if you're taking flax, stop and see what happens. When she has her patients at the Center for New Medicine stop using flax, they notice a decrease in weight, decrease in breast tenderness, hair loss, hot flashes and PMS, and an improvement in sleep, energy, and mood. That rang absolutely freaking true for me. And now, like, I know which foods have plant estrogens in them and I don't eat a lot. There's foods that have lesser amounts. I avoid like the plague, the ones with higher amounts, or the ones that I know personally for me are a trigger. Like, unfortunately, pomegranate. I know that sounds crazy, like pomegranate, are you kidding me? I wish they had a study on this. I would jump in and be like, feed me pomegranates for a couple weeks and see what happens. And I'm not talking about bowls and bowls full. I'm talking about like 3 or 4 pomegranates a week. I was on that kick because I thought they were so full of antioxidants, and then like, oof. Anyway, I mean, maybe that whole plant-based estrogen, you know, phytoestrogen theory, blocking the estradiol works for some people. I mean, there's not one solution for all the people all the time. I'm just telling you my personal experience. This whole topic, by the way, would not be complete without addressing xenoestrogens. These are chemicals that mimic estrogen in the body. Chemicals like the BPA in plastics, or the pesticides that are sprayed on non-organic foods, like the Roundup that was, you know, we're finding residues of, and the conventionally raised beef, farm-raised fish, parabens in skincare products, it's in household products. These lead to excessive estrogen as well, and all the misery and health risks that come along with it. Being on AIP without ever diving into all this science about hormones and all actually improved the majority of my hormonal balance symptoms. That's the beauty of AIP. It serves to reduce inflammation and balance us out in so many ways without us having to understand all those pesky little scientific details. All you really have to do is follow the guidelines, unless you like to dig and dig, you know, if you're a citizen scientist, as Chris Kresser calls them. I love that term. It wasn't until I noticed an absolutely undeniable, unmistakable connection with yams, flaxseed, and pomegranate and my hormonal, like, roller coaster symptoms that I started to actually dive into this stuff. You know me, I like to dig and dig. So I ended up reading Dr. Michael Lamb's book called Estrogen Dominance, and then I read Ben Lynch's Dirty Genes. I highly recommend this book. Game changer. This book and its genetic profile quizzes basically diagnosed me with all of the important genetic defects that I had paid $200 to get the 23andMe testing and spent countless hours and hours of my time pouring through that data in Prometheus and the Snipedia. And then he just like figures it all out with like this one book, and I'm like, wow. By the way, he comes highly recommended from Mickey Trescott. He's her go-to guy on genetics. So basically, from reading this book, he confirmed what I had already strongly suspected and learned through all the genetics testing and research and all that, which is I don't break down estrogen, or dopamine for that matter, efficiently. And I need detox support. And I need to reduce the chemicals in my life. And honestly, that, you know, would be good advice for anybody. But if you have estrogen dominance symptoms, that's where you need to do it. AIP helped me with so many of those symptoms without me ever having to dive into all the, you know, intricacies of estrogen and all that. But as an estrogen dominance prone woman, I have to make a few little adjustments. So I basically avoid the foods I know personally trigger me. Really avoiding pesticides in my food and getting organic, getting grass-fed meat and wild caught fish, not the farm stuff, avoiding those xenoestrogens in the factory farmed meat, using natural skincare and household products, ditching toxic non-stick cookware, I did that a long time ago, and reducing plastic use as much as possible. I've had people comment on my videos, you know, like, oh, you're using a plastic bag. Like, I know I'm not perfect. You do the best you can with what you have. That's an underlying principle with AIP. Some of the ways I've started to reduce my plastic use would be getting a stainless steel water bottle. I love this thing. It's a 34 ounce. I'll put a link to the one I have, and it's great. No more plastic water bottles for me. I found these at Target. They're paper sandwich bags. You could put a coconut wrap in here, or, you know, also little AIP creations. You can't freeze anything in this, it sticks to it. I tried to make oyster cubes in this, and then I was like peeling little bits of paper off. And then a lovely sweet girl named Tara Harris bought me these. and they were on my Amazon wish list, and they are silicone reusable freezer refrigerator bags. You can, you know, they're storage bags, but they're made out of silicone. They're totally BPA free and they're safe, and so that's one way I'm reducing my plastic exposure. Thank you, Tara, by the way. I also bought this shower filter for under $40 on Amazon to reduce my exposure to chlorine and the tap water. If I had known what this thing was gonna do for my hair, I would have bought it a long time ago. And as a side benefit, it's better for my health. But man, oh man, it really did wonders for my freaking hair. Okay, so back to the book, Cooking for Hormone Balance. Where does this come into all this? There were parts I loved and parts I did not love. I love that the author addresses things like how to avoid xenoestrogens in our environment, how to choose healthier personal care products, and she gives you little tips like, you know, dandelion greens are good for your liver health. She also stresses healing the gut and balancing blood sugar issues as an important foundation of your healing process. I agree, and AIP's doing that, so we have that covered. She is, however, a big fan of using flaxseed for hormone balance. If I had bought this not knowing what I know now and tried that whole flaxseed thing, it would not have worked well for me at all. So that does not work well for everybody. My advice would be to simply be aware of which foods are phytoestrogenic and be aware of months when you have extra PMS symptoms or extra estrogen activity, and kind of maybe see if you notice a little correlation between the estrogenic foods and your mood swings. And, you know, if it's helping you, fine, eat more of them, and if it's making it worse, then eat less of them, you know. Mrs. Zalaki is also a fan of seed cycling. This is one I've seen on Pinterest. You see it on a lot of the little infographics, like, oh, all you need to do is eat pumpkin seeds at this time of the month and sunflower seeds at this time of the month, and it'll balance your hormones. And I tried it because sometimes we hear something far-fetched, like, you know, medical medium or whatever, and we're just like, okay, it sounds out there, but what the heck, I'll try it if maybe it'll work. You just want to latch onto something that could help you. And that didn't work for me at all. But your mileage may vary. I mean, you can't eat seeds on elimination phase of AIP anyway, so forget it. But you know, if once you go into your reintros, I mean, just approach that with caution. I like that she addresses some troubleshooting issues in her book like SIBO and histamine intolerance, and she doesn't get too in depth, but at least she sheds a little light on them. There's a little more focus on candida in the book than I think is really an issue. I mean, that was kind of like 20 years ago, everything was candida, 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 and now, you know, there's a little more focus on the things like SIBO. But I mean, it is still an issue for some people, but I just feel like she has a heavy focus on it. The major thing that you need to be aware of is that she didn't, at the time this book was published, realize that ghee was not AIP elimination phase, and none of there is recipes that have butter and the recipes that have ghee, and there's no note under AIP modifications to remove the ghee. So most of the AIP recipes tell you don't use the black pepper if you want to make this AIP, but on page 160 there's a mineral bone broth with no mention at all to remove the black pepper for AIP. All the other recipes they do, but not that one, so they didn't see that either. So be really careful if you're on elimination phase trying to cook with this book. Don't necessarily go by their AIP modifications. I wouldn't recommend it for that. But I gotta balance that out with, well, the creamy Peruvian dressing on page 286 looks really yummy, and also the herbal pesto on page 288 and the raspberry melties. Okay, so all in all, no new info here, nothing groundbreaking. I don't think you need to have it if you're on AIP and you're trying to balance out your hormones. I would say maybe read Dirty Genes. So let's get back to solutions. If you have PMS or signs of estrogen dominance or endometriosis or polycystic ovary syndrome, Hashimoto's, any of these things, we need to balance our hormones as women. You're already so far on your way just by being on AIP. Just give it time. And don't go crazy with the AIP sweet treats. Even if it's natural sugar and compliant sugar, just lower the sugar, you know? Avoid xenoestrogens like the plague. So basically, eat organic, eat grass-fed or wild, ditch the plastic, use natural household cleaners, natural personal care products, filtered water, and love your liver. Eat your beets, eat your dandelion greens, eat loads of veggies in general. Those veggies, by the way, are going to give you plenty of fiber, which is very beneficial because it helps to move the metabolized estrogen out of your system so it doesn't get reabsorbed and go back into circulation. Ditch the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. as well as ditching coffee and alcohol. Those are two that yeah, guilty. I'd love to hear your comments below on future videos you'd like to see, or on how you're dealing with your estrogen dominance or other female hormones, and how AIP has affected your female hormones. I would love to hear about that. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe below if you haven't. I put out new videos every Thursday. If you want to see clips from my everyday AIP life, like what I bought at the grocery store and what I'm having for dinner and things like that, I post clips on Lens. It's very much like a Instagram stories or Snapchat, except it's a feature of Patreon, but it is free to the public, so you don't have to be a patron to view them. And there's a link here to that. Hopefully I'll see you guys soon, and until then, be healthy and hormonally stable.